Welcome to People Love Process. In 2021, I set a creative goal for myself. My challenge was to create an iconic design every day for the entire year. I called that project Modern Kulture. Now, it's been well over a year since I created a new Modern Kulture design, so that's what I want to create in this movie. For many people, creating vector artwork seems a bit tedious at times and intimidating. So in this movie, I want to take you through the creation of a simple, iconic design and show you how I approach it via a rough drawing that you see here in Photoshop and building it using simple methods and tools, and we'll also colorize it and even try to turn it into a fun pattern design as well. This is going to be, again, a style anyone at any level of skill in Illustrator can pull off. This, of course, is best demonstrated than explained, so let's get started. So in this movie, we're starting in Photoshop because it all started with a crude little sketch like this. Now, when I developed these Modern Kulture artwork, I had a drawing template, but at times I wouldn't be in my studio and I wouldn't have a template printed out with me, and I'd just sketch it on my notepad. That's what I did here, and that's how I approach some of these. It doesn't need to be perfect. That's the beauty of working with this type of design. We're just going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab the layer that this sketch is on, and I'm going to hold Shift down, and I'm going to go to this file and just drop it like that. It's not the right size, so we're going to go ahead and scale this. So let's go to Transform. We'll go to Scale, and this is where I'm going to use my grid. Now, the outside, the black line defines the edge of the vector art. Now, the kind of gap or buffer area outside that line, that's going to be where the kind of the art extends in terms of the outline. It will be a fatter outline. So that's why I have it there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down. Once again, it doesn't need to be perfect. So something right around that looks pretty good, I think. So we'll just leave it there. Click. And then the other thing I'll do is I'll just adjust it just to make it a little darker. So we'll go levels. I'm not using a layer effect because after I do this once, I'll never really come back to this. So this is just to improve the contrast. So when we place it in Illustrator, we can see what we're creating. That's fine. We'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And this is where I'll go ahead and just kind of make a selection based off of that square like that. I'm going to inverse this selection, and then I'm just going to delete everything outside of that because we don't need it. Now, I haven't drawn every part, and the reason for that is this is a geometric design, meaning I'm just focusing on 1/4 of it because after we build this in vector form, I'll just copy and rotate to create the elements in all these other 3 areas. Now, of course, this isn't a perfect circle. It doesn't have to be because we're going to be using geometric tools like the ellipse tool to create that circular shape. Same with the eye. The nose is just triangle. The hardest shape that we're going to have to deal with here is this kind of flame that's kind of coming off. This is a sun, if you can't tell yet. And this will be the one where we'll have to finesse the vectors a little bit with the pen tool. But again, it's not hard. So I think this is going to work now. So we need to save out an image we can place in Illustrator. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to, actually, what we're going to do first is we're going to flatten this. And then I'll go Save As. And we'll save it as a copy. We'll select JPEG, we'll select desktop, and I want to call this, I don't know, he's happy, so we'll call him Happy Sun, like that. JPEG's fine. You could save it as a TIFF if you want to. We're just going to do a JPEG and click Save. That's fine. And click OK. So that's how I'll set up an image I'm going to then build. And I tended to do this for every one of my, after I did about, I'd say 40, I was going, man, I need to take a little time just to stage it a little bit. So that's what I do here. So let's go ahead and switch to Adobe Illustrator, and we'll walk through the entire rest of the process. So we'll go ahead and switch over to Illustrator. And this is what that drawing template looks like that you could download. That link is in the description of this movie. Anybody can download this, no problem. It's also included in the exercise files if you choose to get that as well. So this is what you can draw from. We didn't use it in this case because I wanted to show you how you can do it without even using a template. A template is just going to help you. It's a grid of sorts to guide you as you're drawing more geometric forms. But all we're going to do now is we're going to place our artwork, and I have a keyboard shortcut, F10. It's under File if you want to place. Notice I have F10. So all I do is I hit F10. It brings me to desktop. I'll select my image. I'll place it. I'll click to place, and then I'll just align it like that. We're going to turn on this layer because this will be what I want to snap it to. This is our guide for building. I don't want it at full value, so I want to knock this down. We'll try 20%, I think will work. We'll click OK. Now, the document size I have here is 8.5 by 11 horizontal, and I'm building a lot smaller than that. Why? Because I draw it at a smaller size, so I like to build it that same size as part of the challenge. And we're going to use specific tolerances on the line work. So we're going to zoom in because I don't want to be kind of in the space station floating around Earth kind of feeling as I'm building. And now we can go ahead and we can start building our vector art. We're going to use just outlines to create everything. That's the other beauty of this style. So I'll just select this and I'll start creating the outside shape, or the shape of the sun, that is. And keep in mind, once again, that this doesn't have to be perfect because it's an imperfect drawing. You just want the final to look really good like that. So I think that's good enough. And then I'm going to, and this is another thing. My sketch, it looks like it could move up just ever so slightly. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to nudge it up with my nudge keys like that, not far, like that. And I think that's going to, well, you know what? I don't like that. Okay, this is the real world creative process here. Basically, I try to stage things when I'm producing these so it doesn't distract from the learning part. But this is real world, so we're going to go down one. I'm going to go down one more, maybe even just a little bit more, kind of like this. I think that will work. I think that'll, something like that. That's fine. It does, once again, I'm getting, let's just go back to what I had. Okay, I should have, let's try that one more time. There you go. We'll just leave it there and I'll just deal with it. It's bugging me. I should have distorted this in my sketch, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and make a clone, Command-C, Command-F of this shape, and I'm just going to bring this in, and that'll make up that part like that. That's fine. All of these, by the way, when we start building at this size, I want all of my strokes to be, in this case, 4 points. So this is how thick all the strokes are going to be, and it's going to force you to minimize. It's going to force you to clarify and make simple, and that's important. So we're gonna focus on that. So I'm gonna, and I have smart guides turned on, Command U. So if I hover over a path, it tells me I'm on a path. If I hover over an anchor point, it tells me I'm on an anchor point. Now, even though you might have that turned on at times, Illustrator won't show you these, and it'll act like nothing's there. It's a snapping bug. It's been around since CS2. They haven't fixed it. It's over a decade old. who knows if they ever will. So just keep that in mind. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just kind of lazy development, and they don't use the software they create, so they don't know any better, it seems like. We're just going to take this. I'll group it. This is where I'll double click to go into isolation mode, select these anchors, Command J. That kind of welds them together, so it's one path now. And I'm going to go here, and I want to have this round corners on because it's a better overall aesthetic. We'll take the line tool, I'll snap at that anchor, snap it to that anchor, so you can see we've created this shape. This is where I'll take a shape like this, clone it, Command C, Command F. I don't want it thick. I'm just creating it for no other reason than to take this, clone it, Command C, Command F, select the circle, and hold Shift down to rotate it to 90 degrees there. And that just, I don't have to recreate the wheel every time I want to do something. That's why I do that. Now we're going to focus on the pin tool, and we're going to create, now if I directly start here, because I want that flame from the sun to hit right at the same spot this kind of arrow shape does. If I click here, it'll just continue that line as if I want that. I don't want that. So I start somewhere else. I click just off of that, like here. Then I'll go up here. I want the top edge of the flame to hit this edge. So I'll click and pull to get that smooth. I'll come over here, think circular shape. This is 12 o'clock. We're going to go 9 o'clock position. I'll click and pull. A point comes to a point. And this is the part that you're going to have to discern. I think we'll try it here, and I'll click and pull. And then I'll come down here. And again, I don't want to click this or I'll fuse it with this path. So I'll click it somewhere over here. Then I'll move it back to snap it to there. And I'll do the same up here, where I'll move it down and snap it there. Now, at times, even though the stroke is going to be that thick eventually, it's easier to see it in a thinner format. That way we can take the anchor point tool, I can grab a path, get access to these handles by pulling it out, and then I can adjust everything here. So this is smooth anchor point up here. So I'll pull this one out, maybe a little farther, kind of like that. This might go over actually, something like that. And we'll take this one and pull that up. And this is how you'll perfect it. These are the ones that'll take the longest. Freeform shapes are always the hardest ones to finesse in Illustrator. And just don't rush it. The longer you take to pay attention to, oops, don't do that. That was a mistake. I meant to grab this. We'll go up here like that. This one, we might be able to just keep that there. Let's grab the anchor point tool again, and I'll grab this path. Now, I'm going to undo that because I want to show you why I use a plugin. Yes, you can do everything with the anchor point tool and native tools in Illustrator. That's great. But at times, there's plugins that make the process faster. So if I go to the Path Scribe tool, this allows you to grab anywhere on a path and bend it. But notice these white nodes show up. What are those? Those are called ghost handles. That says you can grab that and pull out a handle. So I don't have to manipulate the path. I can immediately jump to this and pull out a ghost handle. That's why I love Astute Graphics plugins. They're more intuitive than Illustrator's own native tools. And by the way, the anchor point tool, being able to bend paths, that wasn't the way that was originally intended. They added that functionality after Astute came up with theirs. I was using Astute plugins to do all these things, rounding, distort paths and everything for about 6 years before Illustrator decided to, decided to rip them off and implement it in a less intuitive way. So there you go. So I use both. Sometimes I like showing both, I should put it that way, because I think choices are always great to have. in almost every context, that is, creative or otherwise. And this is how I create that shape. So I think that's looking good. This might look a little flat. We might pull this up. Yeah, that looks better like that. And that's why I pay attention to if shapes are a little flat, I'll go in and improve it. Let's do the next part, which is this inner line. This is where I'm going to just click on this corner and click right around. I might end up adjusting this once wherever this line falls, and it's going to be based on geometry. I'll adjust this later if I need to. But this is the case where I'm just going to use the plugin to get these ghost handles, and I'm just going to do this because all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to form all of this by just adjusting my ghost handles. So I'm going to bring this all the way up there, and I'm going to take this one. Maybe that's all we need to do, like right about there or so. I'm not so much paying attention to my sketch. I'm paying attention between this edge and trying to even these, how it divides this shape, that is. So I'm trying to make it look better and be an even distribution between the top area and the bottom area. I think this can go a little lower, something like that. And I think that looks pretty good. Maybe even something like that. I think that looks okay. So we'll select these and I'll just sample this thickness. Yeah, I think that looks fine. And then the next part I'm going to do is this triangle. So I think what I want to do is focus on this one first. This one's going to be easy to fit in. This one we have less space. So I'm going to go like this. Like that. And with this shape, we'll clone it. Command-C, Command-F. Reflect it over there. You know what? I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. I want a little more control. And so all we've done is use the square tool to create the triangle. We're ultimately not going to have it to be a closed path. So we'll just cut that with the scissor tool. That'll give me what I need. Then I can snap it to that edge. Once again, Smart Guides comes into play there. Kind of bring it over like that, but I want to change the angle, so I'll go to Rotate tool, snap on this anchor point to set the orientation. And I think something kind of like that might look good. But let's check it because I want the exact same thing to be on the opposite side. So we're going to go ahead and clone this, Command-C, Command-F. I'll select the circular shape again because if I rotate this half, these are 90 degrees. This is somewhat a 45 degree. So we'd want this to come down here, something like this. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to try that again because I don't like how it's hitting down here. It looks weird. So these are all the things I kind of figure out. And as I'm doing this, I'm usually, I don't know, watching Netflix or listening to an audiobook. I'm not trying to talk. Oh, I know what the problem is. I think it's a little too fat. So here's another cool plugin, and this one's really helpful. It's just called the Orient tool. So I've already rotated this. If I select it, you can see the bounding box is all messed up. And even if I go up here and I go Object and I go Arrange, no, where is that? Transform and Reset Bounding Box. Well, it's still off. It's still angled within a corrected bounding box. So what's nice is with this Orient tool, I can click here, and just put it back to 90 degrees. Now the bounding box is going to be off, but I don't really care about that at this point. So I'm just going to rotate this 90 degrees, take the anchor, bring it over here, snap it to that edge. That's why I have those guides. And I think what I want to do, I will reset the bounding box, because what I want to do is I want to make this narrower. I think I have it a little too thick, like that. I think that'll work better. Now I can rotate it. I don't know, something kind of like that, I think looks okay. Maybe a little fatter like that. Well, I thought the hardest thing was going to be making that flame. That was kind of went faster, and I thought it'd be, I didn't think I'd have this much trouble with the stupid triangle, but there you go. Let's go ahead and rotate it. So I'll make a copy of this. Command C, Command F. Let's zoom out, not that far. Select the circle, and I'll go ahead and rotate this into place. You know, I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to go like this. Bring it over here, like that. And I'll zoom in, and I'll just rotate it like that. Right about there. That doesn't look bad. I just want to balance these areas. I don't want this being too close to this or too close to this. This one, now that I'm looking at it, I think I can move this up a little bit. Let's make sure these are the same 4 thickness, like that. And by the way, when you're working with shapes, it's easy to have a group. You want to make sure it's just a regular path on all of these. So you don't want anything grouped, because as you expand it, it'll just make it a hassle. Okay, and this is why I have smart guides, because I'll slide it up its own path. So if I go back here like this, I can just slide it right up on itself until I hit this, and then I can let go. Like that. And I'll go there like that. And I'll go there like that. I think that looks okay. Let's go ahead and build the nose. If I can't build the nose within 5 seconds, I need to retire. There we go. Now somebody's going to call me, it took you 9 seconds. Oops. Oh, wrong tool. Let's get the right tool. Reflect it like that. Isolation mode, group, isolation mode. We're just going to go unite and unite. We don't even need this anchor. We can remove it after we join it. It's not unite. J, Command J for join. I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and do these little lines, because these are easy ones. Because this is going to break up this, and we'll do north, south, east, and west. We'll select these. And we're going to go ahead and clone them. Command C, Command F. Hold Shift down. And it'll lock, as we rotate it, it'll lock into a 45-degree angle. We're going to group these. Then we're going to make a copy, Command C, Command F. Then we're going to go to the rotate tool, double click on it, and we're just going to rotate it minus 22.5, which is half of 45 degrees, and that'll give us that section. That's fine. Then we'll take this one, clone it, Command C, Command F, double click and rotate, and we'll just go 22.5, and that'll rotate it that way. Now we have everything, but make sure, this is why I'm saying this, right now these are group. You don't want group, ungroup them, just so the regular paths, this is still group, ungroup them. You just want all of these to just be paths. If we left them as groups and once we go to expand it, it's just a hassle to deal with. So it's easier to do that. I think that looks pretty good, but this doesn't terminate right with this. So I want to adjust this. I want it to terminate right there. And I think I'll adjust it like that. That looks good. I like that. Here's a cool plugin that I love. It's called Subscribe. And I just want to show you one of their features called Arch by Points tool. It's really cool because how would you build this little cheek that's kind of pushing up under the eye? Well, you probably just go to the pen tool and you go like click, and you go click, and then you go anchor point tool, and then you could bend it like that. So can you do it natively? Of course you can. That just takes longer though. So I like this tool because I can just go, well, in this case, what I want to do first is I want to establish the cheek. And I want this to be a circular shape, kind of like that. Doesn't have to be right in the right position. We'll move it over. So I think that looks good. Then I'll take this circular shape and select it. Then we'll go to the shape building tool. I'll hold Option down, hover over the part I don't want, click, gets rid of it. So all we have now is this shape. That's fine. Now I'll go back to that Arch by Points tool, and I'll click and start here. Now it's going to fuse it to this, which is fine. We'll click there, and then wherever it ends, we'll click there. Then I'll just pull out my curve. Is that not a cool plugin? I love that plugin. I use it all the time. Now, what we want to do is I want to go ahead and create the eye. And so what I want to do is I think I'm going to move this down just a little. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Let's do this. Let's undo what we did on the cheek. I think I'm going to move this cheek down just a bit, just so I get a little more space for the eye. I think it needs a little more. I'm not sure where that hits. Okay. Okay, this is where you'll have to zoom in like that. So with the large circle selected and the cheek shape path selected, we'll just knock off that extension and that, holding Option key down with shape building tool. A lot faster than the good old days of using the scissor tool to do all that kind of work. We'll go back to that plugin, start there, and I'm just going to move it down just a little bit just to give us more room. Yeah, I think that's going to work better. And then I'm going to just start up here. And what I want to do is I want to create a circular shape, kind of like that. And unfortunately, this is where an error plugin comes in, because if you're doing this natively in AI, there is no way to do it. I want this to stop as I'm dragging it up until it hits this path. Well, you can't do that in Illustrator. The best you can do is go into Keyline View, select this, and just go up until that looks about good right there. But it's not always going to be precise. So that's how you can do it natively in Illustrator. I'm going to use what's called Subscribe, and Collision Scribe, and it's this tool, and this is does shape collision. So as soon as this shape goes up and hits this shape, see where that node, that magenta node shows up? That means it's hitting it. I'd stop. Let go. Now it's in a perfect orientation. I can go ahead, and this is another reason why I use plugins, a circle. You can't use a corner widget to round on a circle. Why is that? Because it's a circle. That's how Adobe engineers think. Astute engineers say a circle is a circle, but why can't it be a square? We can use the rounding tool to turn it back, and that's why I use plugins. That is essentially the whole reason to use plugins. If it makes it easier, then why wouldn't you? And the thing about Astute I love so much is the guy who's their head engineer, he used to be a designer. So he understands the creative process. That's half the problem with Adobe. None of their engineers are designers, so they don't know why to ask certain questions at times or why something should be done a certain way because they're not using their software. They get mad when I say that, but I don't know. It's true. So this is going to be the eye. So we'll select this and we'll just go ahead and we will align it center like that so it's in the correct position. And I'll bring this up like that. And I think that eye looks pretty good. Now, I'm not creating the right side because all we have to do is select all of these and go Command-C, Command-F. Go to the Reflect tool, find a central anchor point. We'll use the one here on the nose and reflect them over. We're done. That's why. Now we'll take the Line tool. And I want this, actually, we'll just take this line. We'll copy it, Command-C, Command-F. And I'll bring it over, and this will make the edge because I like making those associations. I wouldn't want this mouth to be down here. Then it doesn't visually appeal to me because it doesn't align with anything else. I like when things have associations with other shapes in a design. I think that's what separates good design from bad design because it doesn't allow fragmentation to happen in your design. That's very true in iconography. It's very true in logo design specifically. Now, all we're going to do is I'm going to go back to that Arch plugin, and I'm going to click on each in here. Then I'm going to pull out. But notice I'm paying attention. I don't want to go fully straight because it's going to bump in to these areas. And I don't want that. That doesn't look good. So I'm going to undo it and we'll redo it. And I'm going to pay attention to the preview it's showing me because I want those to remain angled, kind of like that. But you can see it's still doing it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to allude to it, but not actually do it. I'm going to, let's see, we're going to go here. I'll try it here, and I'll try it here. Then we'll do it, and I think this should work. Boom. Now, technically, we're not meeting this point up here, but that really doesn't matter. I think that looks really good. And I might even select this and nudge it up a little bit. I actually like that better. Okay, boy, I didn't mean to show you all these plugins, but this is just how I work. So I want you to see authentically how I work. Now, if I wanted to extend this path going further up on both sides, how would you do that in Illustrator? Well, unfortunately, you can't. There is no easy way. You just have to rebuild it and try to get it right the second time. That's why plugins are awesome. I'm going to go to what's called the Extend Path tool because I can just go to one end, move it. It sees the geometry and it just continues it. Intuitive, easy, saves me a ton of time. That's why I use plugins. We're going to go ahead and select this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go offset because I want to add lips, a lip to the bottom of this. I didn't have it in my drawing, but I think it'd look good. And 10's a little far. I kind of want to divide that distance. Maybe like that. I think that looks good. And then this is where we'll select this cheek shape, this cheek shape. I'll go to the shape tool. I don't need any of this. I'll click there. Don't need any of this. Click there. I'm holding Option down as I'm clicking. And then these other areas we'll just get rid of. So we have that shape. Now I need a chin. So don't forget the chinny chin chin. We'll go down to here. I'll just snap there and make a circular shape. Then I'll bring it down, hover over the anchor, make sure that snaps right there, just to create a nice little chin. Select the outside shape, use the shape building tool, hold Option key down, click on the part you don't want to get rid of it. And that looks pretty good. Just a few more details, and then we can start moving to the rest like that. I'm going to go to, right about here. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to select this middle line I created, And then I'm going to hold down Option Command B, and it flipped it. That's not good. I don't want that. Well, we're making it more difficult than it needs to be. I'm going to select this line, we'll group it, we'll select the line in the middle, focus on the group by holding Option down, and then we'll align it so it's perfectly in the center. This one was just to do that, so we'll get rid of this. This is just to get the other detail. Okay, you see how this isn't snapping to the path or anything? This is the snapping bug in Illustrator. So you have to kind of move it, deselect it, reselect it, bring it down, and then it'll work. Sometimes it just stops working. Not sure why. I've been hounding them for like a decade. They still never fix it. So, oh well. Every time I bring it up, it irritates me, I'll be honest. Every time I bring it up, though, on Twitter, why don't you switch to Affinity? It's like, well, Affinity is a good app. I have no problem with the app. I see artwork done in it that's amazing, so I think it's fine. But I work with agencies and large design firms, and exactly no large agencies or design firms use it. That's why. I'm going to select these shapes and clone them, Command-C, Command-F. We're going to select this large circle, and now I'm just going to rotate it into place like that. Once I've done that, I can go Command-C, Command-D, Command-F, like that, to get it to the next spot. Let's go ahead and reselect these. We don't need that one, that's right. Just those. Select the circle, clone it, and I'll just go ahead and rotate it. So that large circle helps to keep everything registered. You know, I do make copies of it, so I would just get rid of copies. I think we're done with it. No, I don't know. I might add more details, so I'll just go ahead and leave it. But I think he's looking pretty good. Now, keep in mind, we're on an 8.5 by 11. So this is how big he is at this point. And this is just our build level. So what I want to do now is I want to expand it. And I don't like committing to something at this stage and not being able to go back. So I do one of two things. I might select everything and I'll clone everything and then I'll group everything and then I'll move it to my X layer and just drop it. This is like my junk drawer in all my build files. And I have design directions I never use that are all included there. And so anytime I think, hey, I've done something like this and it was for that project, I open up the build file, go to my junk drawer, and I can find it. So it's a good way to it's almost like vector insurance. So let's go ahead and get rid of our guides. We don't need those. Just the artwork itself. And I'm going to go ahead. Actually, we'll do the guides as well. It doesn't matter. We'll copy it, turn this layer off, and I'm just going to go to create a new layer above this. And I'm going to call this Expand Stroke. Strokes. By the way, you might have noticed by now, I always set my layers to medium blue. I wish there was a preference I could set it, but there isn't. But I always do that. I don't like it being any other color. This one's red because that's what I associate with my junk drawer layer. Now that I have that, I'm just going to go paste in place. So it's the exact same as the one below it. Exact same artwork. Now we're going to zoom in. And I want to explain some things. And that is, we're going to select all of our art minus our guides, our two guide squares. We're going to colorize this. So let's go ahead and go to our colors. This is where right now it's just the magenta that I always build from. But what I want to do is I want to color this black like this. Now, by the way, if I go into this black, you can see it's a strange mix. That's because it's the equivalent of our RGB black. So for this series, I did a lot of images I was posting online. So I always wanted it to be RGB so I wouldn't have to convert CMYK files. Even though I'm working in a CMYK environment, and all these colors are CMYK, the black is RGB. So if I ever want to use it for process, I don't have to change everything. I just change black to like a process black, for example. But all of this is going to work. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select everything that's this black outline minus the two guides like that. And I'm going to convert this to path. So we're going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. So all of these now have turned to shapes that are just fills. Let's zoom in because I think it's important for you to understand this. Notice how close this comes to the inner part of the nose. So I go in on stuff like this and move it away so it doesn't add any extra anchor points. The same is going to happen here as this curve hits the back edge of that. So what I do is I just select this shape, make a copy of it, just so you can see I'm doing, color it, I'll move it. What was that? That was weird. Whoa, okay, here's Illustrator freaking out, so whatever. That was strange. I've never seen that. That's a new one for me. So I just move it away, select the eye, and then I just go to Pathfinder, and let's go ahead and move this up so you can see it. And I go minus front, another brilliant naming option from an Adobe engineer. And we'll go ahead and clone this one. Let's see if it happens if we color green. I bet it does. Yeah, that's a bug. That's weird. So if you ever run into stuff like that in Illustrator, you go, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. That's Illustrator. Welcome to the club. Okay, so I did that. So when these shapes are fused together, it doesn't create any additional anchor shapes. And notice, even on this inside, this might add an anchor shape there. So if I didn't want that to happen, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and edit that as well. And I'll do that by creating a shape like this. Does it do it for every kind of shape? Okay, no, doesn't do it for that. That's odd. I've never seen that before. That must be new with Illustrator 2023, because on my workstation I use 22. I'm always using the latest when I'm recording movies, so I know it's what most people are using. And I want to use the latest to show newer features and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and minus front this. There. Now that won't ever add any extra anchor points. Now that takes time to do that. Why they can't make Illustrator smart enough to know not to add extra anchor points when it's not needed, I don't know. You're going to have to ask one of their engineers that. That's the problem you're always going to run into. So you want to pay attention and, take ownership of the craftsmanship that you're creating your design and artwork with. Here's another one on this example over here. So I would just create shapes like this just to trim off that edge. You're not going to see it anyway since it's going to be kind of engulfed by the outline on the interior of the sun. So once we have that, now we can go ahead, select everything, minus the guides, unite it together, and now we have the united artwork like that. And I think that works good. Now keep in mind the line weight we built out was 4 points. So what I want to do now is I want to select all this again, copy it. We're going to go to this layer, and I'm just going to paste it, zoom out. And now this is where I'm going to enlarge everything to 200% like that. So if we built the original lines at 4 point, we just increased it to 200%. What weight are those lines? Well, technically they're not lines now. They're not strokes, that is. They're just shapes. Well, what appear to be strokes are now 8 points. And in this style, what I do is I tend to go over here and I go to compound and I go to release. Because right now it's like a stained glass. All these inside areas with the black, inside the black outer shape, those are see-through. So we're going to release all the shapes. You might have to ungroup it a few times. If I take this and color it a different color, let's color it teal, you can see now all those shapes on top are black. So if I select those shapes, just the black ones, and I turn them to white, then I take the outside perimeter shape we had, recolor it to black. Now it's set up for coloring. Now it's set up to do some nice coloring, but before I do that, I want to adjust the outer thickness of the stroke because this is where the style comes in. So right now, from the edge of this inner flame shape to the outside edge, it's 8 points. Well, I want the total to be a total of 10. No, 20, that is. So I want this to go out more. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Object, we're going to go to Path, we're going to go to Offset, and we're going to make sure to turn on Round here. And right now, this is what 9 looks like. Actually, that looks pretty good. Well, what's 10? Let's 10. Oh, I like that better. That looks good. So we're going to go 10 points like that. I think that looks good. So we'll click OK. On the inner one, I don't like throwing stuff away. I'll just move this to the X file layer. Then I'll click into isolation mode, select these inner shapes and just delete them. And I think it looks good. Now that I'm looking at that, I think we need to add a few more shapes. So I'm going to go in here in this area. By the way, I think we're done with these. I'm going to delete those. Then I think these look a little blank. So I didn't have anything in my sketch there, but now I'm looking at it, I think we should. So I'm just going to use the ellipse tool to add some shapes. So maybe these are just, I don't know, sunspots. There. That even makes sense. Kind of. Okay. I'll make a large one. Maybe we have a medium one. Kind of like that. Maybe it's a little bigger. And we'll have a smaller one. By the way, I have a keyboard shortcut set up to clone, Command-C, Command-F, runs those two commands, and it's attached to my F3 key. So I can select any shape and just go F3. Now I have a copy of it. That prevents me from having to select a shape, go up and go copy, and then go down and go paste in front. It just does it all automatically. So it makes it a lot easier like that. And I'm going to turn on this layer here because I'm going to go back and grab this circle and bring it back to the layer we're working on here and turn it on like that. Because I'm going to take these shapes with the circle selected and I'm going to rotate these into other positions. Now I'll go Command-C, Command-D, Command-F. Sometimes selecting at certain ratios when they're right next to each other is kind of hard. We'll do that and we'll just rotate this one over into place. Like that. I think that looks pretty good. Now this is where the fun happens. This is where we get to do, oh, I almost was going to forget some. Once again, we're going to do some rounding. And this is where it might become a little monotonous, but man, is it worth it? This is what takes some time. So what I might do here is I'm not going to give any commentary because I think I'm going to speed this part up because it is get a little monotonous. So let's go ahead and duplicate this layer. And I always try to name my layers as I'm going around. So we're going to call this one Subtle Rounds, like that. And all we're doing here is let's go ahead and go into this area. And I'm going to use a plugin here because I prefer doing this. I don't like everything to be the same diameter, which the corner widget defaults to. I go in and just determine that one looks good at that size. I think that can match it. So you can click a corner and apply it. On that case, it was. But on this one, for instance, I want that thickness over here and here, but I don't want any rounding where it comes to the pupil. I can go here. We're going to add a little round there. And we'll add a little round there. And I'll add a little round there. Now, this shape under the nose is all one shape from left to right. So we're going to have to round everything on the left. These shapes up here, we'll just take these. We'll toss them because we've already rounded these. So we'll just clone them. Command-C, Command-F, go to the Reflect tool, find a central anchor point, and move them over. You don't have to recreate the wheel every time. We'll round the nose. I think it makes sense. This is more rounded. We'll put a tiny round up here, but not substantial. We'll make a tiny round down here. We'll put one here, and we'll just copy those and apply them to that. The cheek should be rounded as it's coming in. We'll just match it over there, and we'll match it at the bottom like that. That's why I love this plugin. By the way, this plugin existed, like, I was using this 6 years. Okay, you want a rabbit trail story? Here's a rabbit trail story. Years ago, Astute Graphics was coming to Oregon. They needed to meet with Nike to demonstrate how these tools can speed up productivity. And I was invited to come up and give Nike a demonstration showing them some design methods using these features. And guess who showed up at the meeting? It was the engineers at Adobe's team. And they watched me, and I got a little nervous because I said, well, Illustrator doesn't have this. And they looked uncomfortable when I called it out. But it only took them about, I don't know, 3 more years to come up with, or 2 years, something like that, to come up with what they came up with, which is the corner widget. And by the way, they had me consult with them, Adobe did, on the corner widget. And when I'm talking to the engineers in India live on a video conference at that time, it's 1 o'clock in the morning my time. So I had to stay up really late to be able to talk with them. And they said, we want to show you the corner rounding. And they demonstrated it on a square and a rectangle. And then I asked them, could you like draw a star and round it? And they kind of, there's 2 guys I was talking to. They kind of look at each other. Well, it doesn't work on non-90 degree angles. And I said, oh, okay, so you're still working on that. Well, we were going to release it like this. And I said, you can't do that. And he goes, why? And I said, let me put it this way. Here's why. If you release it and it only works on 90 degree corners, how long do you think it's going to be before a designer tries to round, like I just did here and here, on a non-90 degree corner? Maybe a minute, maybe 30 seconds. But they're going to just go, what the hell? And you don't want that. That's what frustrates users. You want to work it out, spend the time, work it out so it works on any kind of corner whatsoever. Don't release it this way. Nobody's waiting for it, so why push it out so fast? And it took them like 4 more months to add that. And honestly, that's what I think part of the problem is most of their features tend to be that way, the new features. The grid repeat's a good example. It just mocks up a pattern, doesn't actually create a pattern swatch. You can't save it as a graphic style. You can't copy and paste it onto another shape. So it's just more of a gimmick than a truly useful tool. The same with intertwine. But that's just me. Okay, we're just going to get a few more of these shapes, and then I'll copy everything into position that I want it to be. We'll color them. And then we should be pretty close to being done. Once again, this is monotonous. So this is why I'm telling stories, so you don't get completely bored watching me round all these corners. Let me see if I can come up with a different story. I should have figured out some stories to tell you guys. Well, I'll tell you one story I'm dealing with right now, one client, that is. Maybe I shouldn't. Okay, hold. I don't think I'm going to tell that story. Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't say anything nice, so I'm going to do what my mom tells me to do, which is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, let's go ahead. We have that flame created. We don't need these shapes. We already have all this rounded. Obviously, these circles don't need to be round. Oops, those we want to keep. I'll just get rid of all those and all these shapes. We rounded 1/4 so we can get everything we need from those. So I'll get rid of those shapes. Once again, this is where having a shape always available. So I'm just going to redraw this. Not gradient graphic styles, imply that. We'll use that. And all I'm going to do is select these shapes that make up the flame, not the background, and this. Then we'll select these. So we have 1/4 of this artwork created. So I'll clone this, Command-C, Command-F, select the circle, and rotate it into place. And, let's group that. Deselect the circle, group it. It would help if I make sure this is centered. Otherwise, it kind of defeats the whole point. That's important. So pay attention. There. Now we can rotate it into what? What am I doing? Oh, nuts. Okay. My bad. If I was smart, I would have just gone and copied it. We'll do this. Make sure we're on the circle. Then we'll do that. Then we'll select the shape. Then we'll select the circle. There we go. That's what I meant to do. Like that. And rotate it there. Clone it and rotate it into place there. I think we can get rid of the circle now. So I'll do that. That's fine. So that took a lot of time to just make those subtle rounds. But here's why I do that. Let's look really close. So here's with the rounds and here's without the rounds. Is this bad? No. Is this better? Absolutely. That's why I do it. Okay, now that I have the subtle rounds, I want to colorize it. And again, I like to move to a different stage. Therefore, we'll go colorize like that. We'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit because we're going to have fun coloring it. It's the sun, so this is probably going to be super easy to color. His nose needs to be dark orange. And then what I try to do on these designs is figure out a balance of color. I think that needs to be dark orange. And I want all these to be different colors, so I'm going to go different values here. So I'll go there, select that. So it's kind of going down in color value. And then the lightest one, maybe it gets really light like that. And then based off of that, I'll make decisions on, I think since this is the furthest back, I don't want to have, oops, that's right, we have those groups. So we'll ungroup those like that. These, all the points, these are furthest back. So I don't want it to overpoweringly come off as orange on that level, but I think that works. Then I'll start matching colors. That looks good. Now, do that over here. So if that's the same order, we can just mimic it by applying those colors here. Do this one, and light, and that one, this. That's looking pretty good. I think we want this color in the background. We'll go lighter here on the front. Maybe his lips are part of his face, and the part of the face further back we'll color like that. His cheeks and his chin, we'll make those the lightest to introduce that color. And I think we need to add those colors there. Like that. And we'll add these colors. This one's a really easy one to color now that I'm thinking about it, just because it's a sun. You're not going to make a sun purple. That'd look kind of weird. Like that. And then the sunspots. Like that. Maybe this is the lighter color. This is the yellow. Let's go opposite. We'll do the same way down here. And we'll go yellow. No, I don't like that being right next to it. We'll do that yellow. We'll do that. That looks better. And I think just because it goes yellow, orange, yellow, I kind of like that better. This will match that. This will be the yellow, lightest yellow, that is. This will be that. We'll do that one, and the lightest. Wow, okay, that was a lot faster than I thought it would be for color. I'm usually really, really, really picky with color, but I like that. Oh, you know, it would look cool. Hold on the eyes and the... So right now, these are essentially, if I just make a shape, snapping it to that negative space, you can see it's 8 points. So we blew it up 200%. That's fine. We'll go down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase this shape just so you can see it. It's an outline. I'm going to select all these teeth. And we'll unite them. So it's a compound path. Then I'll select the shading, make a copy of the teeth, Command-C, Command-F. Select the shading shape, which is basically a throwaway shape. It's just to intersect with the teeth. This creates the area that I'll add shading. And if you're using global colors, and notice the white corners on all these swatches, that means they're global. So if you go into this, you can see I have global selected. Why is that? It's because if you have global colors, you can use tints. And I want to use this orange, but obviously I don't want it to be the full value of orange. So we're going to go to the color and we're going to tint it. And I'm going to tint it like really faint to like 15%. But it acts as a nice shading. I think that looks cool. Now, I want to do the same shading on the eyes, but I'd have to go back and rebuild the curve to get that curve to match. And this is where that arch tool comes in from Astute. Let's zoom in on the eye, because this is really cool and is a really good example of how you can save time by using really smart tools. So we're going to click on a thin line profile. 0.25 points. That's why I keep these graphic styles in all of my new document formats. So if I create a new document, they're automatically loaded. If I click here, and once again, this part is subscribe, so we're using the Arch by Points tool. If I click here, click all the way down to this anchor point, drag it up until it snaps here to that anchor point, it's now determined the curve. So this path contains the geometry we need. Now I'll go to another plugin, that extend path, and I just want to extend it further on that geometry out like that. We'll go ahead and we'll just make a closed shape like this. Now that I have that, I can select this, go to Object, go to Path, go to Offset Path, and I don't want 10, I want 8 to match our tolerance. Preview it, that looks great, click OK. I don't even need this anymore, get rid of it, select the eye, copy it, Command-C, Command-F, select the shading shape, intersect, and now we can simply go down and sample the tint, and now we have the tint on that eye like that. Since the eye on the right is exactly the same, we can copy this. We can go to the Reflect tool, find a central anchor point. I'll probably use down here on the mouth. Oops, and screw up like that. I'll go down, actually, I'll go down to the chin right here, and we'll rotate it over into the right side. And I think that looks pretty cool and adds a lot. I like that little detail a lot, so I'm glad I did that. Let's do one more thing, and that is I want to show you how you can create really cool patterns. Come up with any design based off of whatever idea you have. But if I copy all these, and we'll just create a new layer. Again, I'm going to change this medium blue, and we'll call this pattern, like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste this artwork. We can zoom out a little bit. Now, this can be whatever size you want. The pattern doesn't even need to be 100%, but we're just going to keep it here like this. And I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Let's go ahead and put the Pathfinder back where it was. And I'm going to clone this, Command-C, Command-F, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to move it over. Now, why am I doing that? Because we don't need black in this design, so we're going to select these, and we're going to go to our graphic styles. I'm just going to color them this color, like that. And I'm actually going to go into our design. Right now, we have all these inner shapes, so I'm going to select all those, deselect the outside shape, and group it. Same with this. Deselect the outside shape, group the inner shapes. Now, what you want to do on a pattern is you want to make sure the continuity between shapes in your pattern are the same. We know what this size is, and if you forget as you're building something, it's pretty simple to figure out. Just turn on Smart Guides, Command-U, snap to this anchor, draw a rectangle, then drag this over till it snaps to that curve. Then with this shape selected, go up here, and you can see this is like 18 points wide. So what we want to do is we want to do half of 18 points. Now, why am I telling you that? It's because that is what's going to create the repeat. If I take this and bring this over until it snaps right there, that's fine. So we have that part of the pattern figured out. I'll select both of them, clone it, Command-C, Command-F. We'll go down here, and I'm just going to rotate this 180 degrees. That way the art is straight up, rotating 90 degrees, and there 90 degrees, and there 90 degrees, then returns to the same orientation. Then I'm going to take this and bring it up till it snaps to the bottom of that artwork. Okay, but this, half of the distance, which is 18, is 9. So we're going to select this one, and we're going to go Object, Path, Offset Path, and we're going to go -9, like that. And that'll give us a registration point. What do I mean by that? Well, it's easier just to show you. We can get rid of this, select all of this now, and all I'm going to do is drag everything into the swatches palette and let go, deselect the art before you go into the patterns, or else it's going to fill all these shapes with the pattern once you come out of it. So make sure it's deselected. Now this is a pattern swatch. I'm going to double click on it to go into pattern tile mode. We're going to click on the pattern tile tool, which is right here. And you can see it's kind of repeating. but it's too big of a gap, as you see here. It's double that 18 space wide. That's not what we want. So what we want to do is grab this bounding box here. And if we just start moving it, it'll just move it to one side or the other. If you hold Shift down, Option Shift down, it'll do it equally on all four sides. And that's what we want to do, is we want to go all the way down, snap to that inner path we inset, which is based off of 9. Once it hits that, let go. Now, all the gaps between all the art are the way it should be. It's that 18 points. But we don't want this embedded in the art. All these magenta color shapes were just for registration. So I'll select all those and just delete them. And now you can see the pattern emerging. Now, based off, if you want to know more about creating patterns and all the controls in here, make sure to watch I have 3 other movies on my People of YouTube channel you can watch, and I go into more detail on this. But on this one, it's just defaulting to a grid. We can call this Sunshine Pattern. We'll be really creative with the name. And it's defaulting to a grid. Now, if you didn't want a perfect grid, you could also go brick by row, and it's just going to shift it. Now, it's only showing 3 by 3, so if we increase this to like 9 by 9, it'll fill in all the preview down here. All this is doing is shifting it over by half. So you're not seeing a big change there, because all it is just shifting your pattern design over one. And this way you can change it. Maybe you want it a fourth, so you break up that continuity and you get more of a shifted look. Or maybe you want it to be, I don't know, 2/3. So you can pick whatever works. Now, the spacing in between all the elements is going to remain the same. That's not changing. It's just how it lays out that grid of the pattern. In this case, it's calling it bricks because it does it more like bricks, but it staggers it, and that's what this offset is it's just staggering that repeat. You could go to 3/4, you could go to anything you want. Maybe you go to 2/5. So it just depends on what you want to do. Now, ours is such a geometric design. I think either 1/4 is fine, because it kind of breaks that look where all these lines align in whatever direction you go. Here, it's a little different. You can also do brick by column, which does it vertically, not horizontally. And then you can, again, pick whatever one you think works best on here. Half isn't really that much of a difference. But if you go 1/4, that would break it up nicely. We'll just stick with 1/4. Now, to exit out of this, you can double click the background. You can go up here and just navigate out, or you can just hit the escape key and it takes you back to the artboard. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. We're going to create a pattern example. So we'll just name this pattern demo. Oh, it's the layer color I don't like. So let's change it to medium. Okay. Like this. Now you have your pattern. Let's go ahead and align it with the artboard we're using, like that. Okay, that's a little big. So to control the size, if you want it smaller by default, every time you use it, just create the art that makes the pattern smaller. I kind of built it a little too big, I think, but it's not that big a deal. You can go, that's a pun, not that big a deal. You can go to the scale tool. If you double click it, just make sure you turn off transform object, because if it's not, it'll make the object bigger. You don't want that. You just want it to affect the transform on the patterns. Right now it's 200. We can go 55 and we can check it out. So that's what we had there, and that looks better. So we'll go, sure, we'll go with that, like that. And you might be going, well, it kind of looks bad without the black. And I kind of agree. Now I'm distorting it. I wouldn't do that. I would just grab the anchors and move it out like this. But unlike repeat grid, this is a true pattern. This swatch, you can create any shape. Let's say you go over here, you create a circular shape. You can't do that with repeat grid. So, but here's how you control it. We need to hurry up. We're almost done here. We'll go to Appearance. We'll add, go to the Option menu on the Appearance palette, go Add New Fill. It's going to default to what you're using, the fill. We'll keep that down here the same. It's using the fill. We're just going to go and select the black fill as the background just to get back to what we had. And I think that looks absolutely cool. I think we'll make this a little taller like that. But you can see how nice that looks. Now, if you don't want it at a 90-degree angle, this is where you can also go to the Rotate tool, double click again, just decheck the transform object, and then let's say you want it 22.5, and oh, my bad, I'm on the fill color black. You want to make sure you're on the correct layer. Think of Appearance Panel as layer on steroids or with magical abilities. LinkedIn got upset with me because I said on steroids in one of the videos, and some viewer got all bothered. You shouldn't be encouraging drugs. I'm not. Come on, lighten up. We're going to take the fill and we're going to go ahead and click on Rotate, and now it's showing you how it's rotating. If I click Preview, so that's how you control it. You just need to make sure to turn off transform objects. And I'd love to have a lounge shirt with this design on it. Would that not be really cool? So I want to walk you through just a couple more things, and then we're all done. I created 374 designs when I did Modern Culture. It's been a couple years since then, but I created a whole bunch of really cool ones. I love these. And the cool thing is I've made connections with two tile manufacturers. One is a Soviet republic called Uzbekistan. And there's a vendor there who's selling my tiles there. And he did a great job of manufacturing them. I'm working with a tile manufacturer out of California now. He's doing an initial run of 5. They're bringing it to a trade show, and that's what these look like. These are actually 8x8, and then he has smaller versions, which are 6x6. Eventually, I'll have these for anybody to be able to order. You can order one tile, and they'll create it for you and ship it out to you. It's great. You could use it in a kitchen to place a teapot on. Or you could use it as a giant coaster next to your computer, whatever. But I love how these came out. It's a fun style to work on. And I encourage you to download the free drawing template linked in this movie's description. Think of a theme or topic and do some simple drawing to work out a design. Don't get intimidated by it. This is simple geometric drawing. Then put the methods I showcase to the test and see what you can create. If you do that, would you do me a favor? Email me from the email link in the description of each movie and show me what you created. I'd love to see it. Of course, you can also find a link to access the exercise files for each movie in the movie's description as well. Accessing the exercise files helps me to dedicate time in developing new content for this channel. You can also support this channel by becoming a member of People Love Process, and members get a lot of perks and access to free resources that I create only for them. Thank you for watching People Love Process, and as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.